My name is Sarah. I am 34 years old, and I never imagined that planning my husband's surprise 40th birthday party would expose the biggest betrayal of my life. After 6 months of secret preparations, when I opened the door that night to welcome our guests, one sentence from a stranger shattered my world. "Sarah, we didn't know Michael was married. He told us he was single." Before I continue this story, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to join our community of storytellers. Before Michael, my life felt stable and promising. I had built a successful graphic design career from the ground up, starting as an intern at a small Seattle agency and working my way up to senior designer. By the time I was 28, I had enough clients and experience to consider starting my own studio. Every morning, I woke up excited about creative challenges and the possibility of building something that was truly mine. I lived in a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill with my rescue dog Max, a golden retriever mix with separation anxiety, who had become my constant companion. We had our routines, morning runs around Green Lake, weekend visits to Pike Place Market, and quiet evenings where I would work on personal projects while Max slept at my feet. My social life was rich and fulfilling. I had a close group of college friends who had also settled in Seattle, and we maintained traditions like monthly dinners and annual camping trips. There was Jenny, my roommate from freshman year who had become a pediatric nurse, Marcus, who worked in tech and always had the best restaurant recommendations, and Lisa, a teacher who could make anyone laugh even on their worst day. These relationships sustained me through the ups and downs of dating in my late 20s. And there had been plenty of dating disappointments. There was James, the architect who was still hung up on his ex-girlfriend. David, the marketing executive who turned out to be married, though at least he was honest about it when I found out. Kevin, who seemed perfect until I realized he expected me to give up my career goals to support his political ambitions. Each relationship taught me something about what I wanted and what I absolutely would not tolerate. By 29, I wasn't desperate to settle down, but I was ready for a real partnership. I had learned to recognize red flags early and had no patience for games or half-hearted commitment. I wanted someone who would celebrate my ambitions, not try to diminish them. Someone who understood that love meant building each other up, not tearing each other down. My family had always been supportive of my standards. My parents, Patricia and Robert, had been married for 38 years and modeled the kind of partnership I hoped to find. They worked as a team, respected each other's opinions, and never tried to change each other's fundamental nature. My mother often said, "The right person will love you exactly as you are, while inspiring you to become even better." My younger sister Emma was more impatient with my dating life. At 26, she had recently gotten engaged to her college boyfriend and couldn't understand why I was being so picky. My older brother Tom, divorced after a marriage that ended badly, was more supportive of my cautious approach. "Take your time," he would tell me. "A bad marriage is worse than no marriage. Trust me on that." I was beginning to think he might be right when I met Michael at a networking event for marketing professionals in downtown Seattle. It was a Thursday evening in March, one of those events I almost didn't attend, because I was tired and had work to finish. Something made me change my mind at the last minute. The event was held at a trendy downtown hotel, filled with people in business casual attire, making polite conversation over wine and appetizers. I was talking with a potential client when I noticed a man across the room, who seemed different from the typical networking crowd. He was listening intently to whoever was speaking, asking thoughtful questions, and seemed genuinely interested in the conversations, rather than just looking for opportunities to promote himself. When he approached our group later in the evening, I was immediately struck by his presence. Michael was tall, probably 6'2", with dark hair that was just beginning to show silver at the temples. He wore a well-fitted navy suit and had the kind of confident posture that suggested success without arrogance. "I couldn't help overhearing your conversation about rebranding challenges," he said, extending his hand to me. "I'm Michael Robertson. I work with companies going through similar transitions, and I'd love to hear more about your approach." His handshake was firm, his eye contact direct, and his interest seemed genuine. We talked for 20 minutes about design philosophy and business strategy, and I found myself impressed by his insights and the respectful way he engaged with my ideas. "I'd love to continue this conversation sometime," he said as the event wound down. "Would you be interested in getting coffee this week? I think there might be some opportunities for collaboration between our companies." It felt professional rather than romantic, which I appreciated. Too many networking events became uncomfortable when men mistook professional interest for personal invitation. Michael seemed to understand the difference. We met for coffee that Friday at a cafe near my office. What was supposed to be a 1-hour business meeting turned into a 3-hour conversation that ranged from work to travel to books to life philosophy. I learned that Michael was 36, had been living in Seattle for 5 years, and worked as a regional manager for a tech company that helped businesses optimize their digital presence. "I moved here from the East Coast," he explained when I asked about his background. "I wanted a fresh start, and Seattle felt like a place where I could build something meaningful." He spoke passionately about his work, describing it not just as a job, but as a way to help smaller businesses compete with larger corporations. His perspective on business ethics and social responsibility aligned closely with my own values. "Too many people in our industry are focused on short-term profits," he said. "I believe the companies that will succeed long-term are the ones that prioritize genuine value creation over quick wins." By the end of our coffee meeting, I realized I was attracted to Michael in ways that went beyond professional respect. He was intelligent, thoughtful, and seemed to share many of my core values. When he asked if I'd like to have dinner the following weekend, I said yes without hesitation. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant in Fremont. Michael arrived exactly on time, brought flowers, and had clearly put thought into choosing a place that would be conducive to conversation. He asked thoughtful questions about my work, my family, and my goals, and shared his own experiences and ambitions openly. "I've been waiting for someone like you," he told me as we walked along the waterfront after dinner. "Someone who understands ambition and has her own dreams. Most of the women I've dated have been intimidated by successful men or expected me to take care of everything. You're different." His words felt sincere, and I found myself more attracted to him with each passing hour. When he walked me to my car and kissed me goodnight, it felt like the beginning of something significant. Our relationship developed steadily over the following months. Michael was attentive without being clingy, supportive of my work without trying to take over, and seemed genuinely interested in building a partnership based on mutual respect. He integrated well with my friends, charming Jenny with his knowledge of wine, and engaging Marcus in lengthy discussions about technology trends. There were small things that I noticed but didn't dwell on at the time. He was always careful about his phone, keeping it face down during meals and stepping outside to take certain calls. When I asked about these calls, He would explain they were work related and often involved confidential client information. "I have to be careful about client privacy," he would say. "Some of these companies are going through sensitive transitions, and I can't risk their information being overheard." It seemed reasonable, even admirable. In an age where people often overshared, Michael's discretion felt refreshing. Another thing I noticed was that he rarely talked about his family. When I shared stories about my parents or siblings, he would listen attentively, but rarely reciprocated with stories of his own. When I asked direct questions about his background, his answers were vague. "My parents live in Connecticut," he told me. "We're not particularly close. They're very traditional, very focused on appearances. I've always been something of a disappointment to them, because I didn't follow the path they laid out." He described his father as a demanding corporate lawyer, and his mother as a socialite who cared more about status than substance. His only sibling, a sister named Jessica, was going through a difficult divorce and wasn't in a place to meet new people. "I want to protect what we have," he explained when I suggested we could visit his family or invite them for a weekend. "Once you meet them, they'll have opinions and advice about our relationship. They'll try to analyze you and judge whether you're suitable. I want us to build our foundation first, without outside interference." This explanation resonated with me. My own family could be overwhelming in their enthusiasm for my relationships, and I appreciated Michael's desire to preserve our privacy during the early stages. As our relationship deepened, I introduced Michael to my family gradually. He met my parents first, joining us for a Sunday dinner at their house in Ballard. I was nervous about how he would fit in. My family could be loud and opinionated, and I wasn't sure how Michael's more reserved personality would mesh with their energy. My concerns proved unfounded. Michael was charming and respectful, engaging my father in conversation about business and complimenting my mother on her cooking. He brought a bottle of wine and a small bouquet for my mother, gestures that were thoughtful without being excessive. "His lovely," my mother told me privately as we cleared dishes. "Very polite and clearly intelligent. And the way he looks at you, like you're the most important person in the room." My father's approval was equally important to me. Robert was protective of his daughters and had never hesitated to express concerns about our romantic choices. After dinner, he pulled me aside in the kitchen. "I like him," he said simply. "He treats you with respect, he's interested in your work, and he doesn't seem threatened by your success. That's rarer than it should be." Meeting Emma and Tom went equally well. Emma was immediately smitten with Michael's romantic gestures and thoughtful gifts. Tom, more skeptical by nature due to his own divorce, appreciated Michael's directness and business acumen. "Seems solid," Tom told me after a family barbecue where Michael had spent hours helping him repair a deck railing. "Practical, reliable, not full of himself. Those are good qualities in a partner." Even my grandmother, Nana Rose, who had been married for 65 years before my grandfather passed away, gave her approval after meeting Michael at my birthday dinner. "He looks at you the way your grandfather looked at me," she told me privately. "Like you're the most precious thing in his world. That kind of love is rare, Sarah. Don't let it slip away." With my family's blessing and my own growing confidence in our relationship, Michael and I moved in together after dating for 6 months. He sold his downtown condo and moved into my Capitol Hill apartment, a transition that went more smoothly than I had expected. Michael adapted well to life with Max, patiently working to gain the dog's trust and eventually becoming his favorite person for morning walks. He contributed to household expenses without making it feel transactional, and we developed routines that worked for both of us. Our domestic life was comfortable and harmonious. Michael was neat without being obsessive, a good cook who enjoyed preparing meals together, and respectful of my need for space to work on freelance projects in the evenings. We shared similar taste in movies and books, enjoyed hiking on weekends, and had compatible social styles. The only ongoing source of tension was his continued reluctance to discuss his family or introduce me to them. By the time we had been living together for 6 months, I had never spoken to his parents or sister, despite multiple suggestions that we arrange a visit or invite them to Seattle. "They're going through a lot right now," Michael would say when I brought up the topic. "Jessica's divorce is getting messy, and it's putting stress on everyone. My parents are focused on supporting her through the legal battles. It's not a good time for introductions." When Jessica's divorce was finalized, and I suggested we reach out to congratulate her, Michael's response was that she needed space to heal and wasn't ready for new relationships. "She's pretty fragile right now," he explained. "Meeting you would remind her of what she's lost. I think we should wait until she's in a better place emotionally." These explanations always sounded reasonable in the moment, but looking back, I realize I was making excuses for behavior that didn't quite make sense. In a healthy relationship, meeting your partner's family should be natural and welcomed, not something that's constantly postponed due to circumstances. But I was deeply in love with Michael by this point, and I chose to trust his judgment about his own family dynamics. Everyone's situation was different, I reasoned. Not all families were as close as mine, and it was possible that his parents and sister really were as difficult as he described. After living together for a year, Michael proposed. It was a beautiful, thoughtful proposal that took place during a weekend trip to the San Juan Islands. We were hiking to a scenic overlook when he suddenly stopped and got down on one knee. "Sarah," he said, pulling a ring box from his backpack, "you've made me a better person. You've shown me what real partnership looks like. I want to spend the rest of my life supporting your dreams and building something beautiful together. Will you marry me?" The ring was perfect, a vintage style setting with a stone that caught the light beautifully without being ostentatious. More importantly, his words reflected everything I had hoped for in a proposal. He wasn't asking me to complete him or save him. He was asking me to be his partner in building a life together. "Yes," I said through tears of joy. Absolutely yes. The engagement period was a whirlwind of planning and excitement. We decided on a wedding the following summer, giving us 8 months to plan. I had always dreamed of a medium-sized wedding with family and close friends, and Michael seemed supportive of whatever would make me happy. "I want you to have the wedding you've always imagined," he told me. "I just want to be there at the end of it, married to you." His romantic approach to wedding planning endeared him even more to my family. He attended cake tastings and venue visits without complaint, offered thoughtful input when asked, and seemed genuinely excited about the celebration. The only challenge was the guest list. My side would include about 80 people, family, college friends, work colleagues, and neighbors who had become close friends. Michael's list was much smaller, maybe 15 people total. "I don't have a large social circle," he explained when I expressed concern about the imbalance. "I prefer deep friendships with a few people rather than casual relationships with many. The people I'm inviting are the ones who matter most to me." His guest list included colleagues from work, a few friends from his gym, and his college roommate who lived in California. Still no family members. despite my continued suggestions that his parents and sister should be included. "They're not really wedding people," he said when I pressed the issue. "Big celebrations make them uncomfortable. They'd prefer to meet you privately after we're married, when there's less pressure and fewer people around." I accepted this explanation, though it felt strange. Most parents wanted to attend their child's wedding, regardless of their comfort level, with large gatherings. But Michael knew his family better than I did, and I trusted his judgment. The wedding itself was everything I had dreamed it would be. The ceremony took place in a beautiful garden venue, with flowers I had helped design and music that reflected our shared tastes. Michael's vows brought tears to my eyes as he promised to be my partner in all things, to support my ambitions, and to build a life based on complete honesty and trust. "I promise to never hide anything important from you," he said, looking directly into my eyes as he spoke. "I promise to always be the man you fell in love with, and to love you exactly as you are while encouraging you to become everything you're meant to be." Standing there in my grandmother's vintage lace dress, surrounded by everyone I loved most, I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. The man I had chosen to spend my life with was everything I had hoped for: intelligent, kind, ambitious, and completely devoted to our relationship. The reception was joyful and relaxed, with great food, dancing, and heartfelt toasts from both sides. My father's speech brought everyone to tears as he welcomed Michael into our family and talked about the importance of choosing a partner who would be a true teammate in life. Michael's college roommate, David, gave a toast that provided some insight into Michael's character before I met him. "I've known Michael for 15 years, David said, raising his glass, "and I've never seen him as happy as he's been since he met Sarah. She brings out the best in him, and together they're going to do amazing things." Looking back, I wonder if David knew more about Michael's life than he revealed that night. But in the moment, his words felt like a beautiful blessing on our marriage. Our honeymoon was a 2-week trip to Italy, something we had planned together based on our shared love of art, history, and good food. We spent time in Rome, Florence, and the Tuscan countryside, and it felt like the perfect start to our married life. Michael was an ideal travel companion, flexible when plans changed, enthusiastic about trying new experiences, and always considerate of my preferences and energy levels. We took hundreds of photos, tried local wines and restaurants, and spent hours talking about our hopes for the future. "I want us to travel more," Michael said one evening as we watched the sunset from our hotel terrace in Florence. "I want us to see the world together and build memories that will sustain us through whatever challenges come our way." It was during this trip that we first discussed having children. Neither of us felt rushed, but we both wanted a family eventually and were aligned on basic parenting philosophies. "I want to be the kind of father who's present and engaged," Michael said. "I want our children to feel secure in our love for them and for each other." These conversations deepened my love for him and strengthened my confidence in our future together. We were building something solid and beautiful, and I couldn't wait to see what the next chapters of our life would bring. Returning to Seattle as newlyweds felt wonderful. We settled into married life easily, maintaining many of our previous routines while also establishing new traditions. Sunday morning breakfast in bed became sacred time for us, as did Friday evening walks around the neighborhood, followed by dinner at one of our favorite local restaurants. Michael continued to excel in his career, earning promotions and recognition for his innovative approaches to client relations. I finally took the leap and started my own design studio, a dream I had been working toward for years. Michael's support during this transition was unwavering. "I believe in you completely," he told me during one particularly stressful week when I was questioning whether I had made the right decision. "You're incredibly talented, and you understand what clients need better than anyone I know. This business is going to be successful because you're running it." His confidence in me proved justified. Within 6 months, I had more clients than I could handle and was considering hiring an assistant. The work was challenging and fulfilling in ways my previous job had never been, and knowing that Michael was proud of my success made it even sweeter. We bought a house in Ballard. A charming craftsman with a large kitchen, a yard for Max, and a separate office space where I could meet with clients. The process of choosing and decorating our home together felt like another step toward building the life we both wanted. But even as our marriage thrived in most ways, the mystery of Michael's family continued to nag at me. We had been married for almost 2 years, and I still had never spoken to his parents or sister. Every holiday, birthday, and milestone passed without any contact from them. "Don't they want to know how you're doing?" I asked Michael one evening, after receiving a care package from my own parents. "Don't they care that you got married and bought a house?" "They're not demonstrative people," he replied, not looking up from his laptop. "They assume if something were wrong, I would call them. No news is good news in their family dynamic." This explanation felt increasingly hollow as time passed. What family would have no interest in their son's wedding, his new home, or his career success? Even distant families typically maintain some level of contact. When I suggested sending Christmas cards or birthday gifts to his parents and sister, Michael discouraged it. "They would find that intrusive," he said. "They prefer to maintain distance until relationships are well established. Maybe next year we can arrange a visit." But next year came and went with the same excuses. Jessica was dealing with post-divorce depression. His parents were having health issues. The timing was never right for introductions. I began to feel like there was a whole part of my husband's life that was hidden from me. When I brought up these concerns, Michael would reassure me with logical explanations and expressions of love, but the fundamental problem remained. After 3 years together, I knew almost nothing about his family of origin. Am I being paranoid? I asked my sister Emma during one of our regular coffee dates. Is it normal for someone to be this private about their family? Emma, who had always been intuitive about people's motivations, frowned as she considered my question. "It's unusual," she said carefully. "Even if his family is difficult, most people would want their spouse to understand their background. The fact that you've never even spoken to them on the phone is weird." Her validation of my concerns was both comforting and disturbing. I had been telling myself that every family was different, that Michael's approach was simply more private than what I was used to. But Emma's perspective suggested that my instincts were correct. Something about the situation didn't add up. That night, I decided to address the issue directly with Michael. I waited until we were both relaxed, sitting in our living room after dinner, and then broached the subject as gently as possible. "Michael, I've been thinking about your family situation," I began. "I understand that they're private people, but I'm starting to feel like there's a whole part of your life that I don't know anything about. It's been 3 years since we met, and I've never even heard their voices." Michael set down his book and looked at me with what appeared to be genuine concern. "Sarah, I can see how this would be confusing for you," he said. "Your family is so warm and welcoming, and you're used to open communication. My family operates differently. He went on to explain that his parents had always been emotionally distant, focused more on achievements and appearances than on building close relationships. His sister Jessica had struggled with mental health issues throughout her adult life, and her recent divorce had made her even more fragile. "I'm protecting you from their dysfunction," he said, reaching over to take my hand. "I've seen how they can be cruel and judgmental, especially toward people they perceive as outsiders. I love you too much to subject you to their behavior until I'm sure you can handle it." This explanation was more detailed than any he had given before, and his apparent desire to shield me from difficult people felt protective rather than secretive. I wanted to believe him, to trust that his motives were loving rather than deceptive. "But don't you think I should be able to make that decision for myself?" I asked. "I'm a grown woman. I can handle difficult people if it means understanding your background better." Michael sighed deeply, as if wrestling with a difficult decision. "You're right," he said finally. "I've been overprotective. Let me think about the best way to arrange an introduction. Maybe we could start with a phone call to Jessica. She's the most reasonable of the three." This felt like progress, and I agreed to wait while he figured out the best approach. But weeks passed without any follow-up, and when I brought up the topic again, Michael would say he was still trying to find the right timing. Meanwhile, our marriage continued to be strong in other ways. We were talking about starting to try for children, possibly taking a major trip to celebrate my 35th birthday, and expanding my business to include a partner. These positive developments kept me focused on our future rather than dwelling on concerns about his past. It was during this period that I decided to throw Michael a surprise party for his 40th birthday. The milestone felt significant, and I wanted to celebrate how far we had come as a couple and how much we had built together. I began planning 6 months in advance, reaching out to his colleagues and friends to coordinate schedules and keep the surprise. Everyone was enthusiastic about participating, and I felt excited about creating an event that would show Michael how much he was appreciated by the people in his life. The challenge, as always, was his family. I had never thrown a party that didn't include family members, and Michael's 40th birthday seemed like the perfect opportunity to finally bring everyone together. Surely his parents and sister would want to celebrate this milestone, even if they were generally distant. After weeks of internal debate, I decided to take action. I spent hours searching through Michael's phone contacts, social media accounts, and email for any trace of his family's information. He was remarkably private online, with minimal social media presence and contacts that were primarily work-related. Finally, I found a contact labeled J. Robertson in his phone. The area code was from Connecticut, which matched what he had told me about his family's location. I debated for days whether to call this number, ultimately deciding that my desire to include his family in this celebration outweighed my concerns about overstepping boundaries. When I dialed the number that Saturday morning while Michael was at the gym, a woman's voice answered after 3 rings. "Hello." "Hi. Is this Jessica?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Yes, who is this?" "This is Sarah, Michael's wife. I know we've never spoken before, but I'm planning a surprise party for his 40th birthday, and I wanted to invite you and your parents." The long pause that followed made my stomach clench with anxiety. "I'm sorry," Jessica said finally, her voice confused. "I think there might be some mistake. Who did you say you were?" "Sarah Robertson, Michael's wife. We've been married for almost 3 years." Another pause, even longer this time. "I think you might have the wrong Michael," Jessica said carefully. My brother Michael isn't married. He's been in a long-term relationship with someone named Claire, but they're not married. The world seemed to tilt sideways. I felt like I might faint as the implications of her words sank in. Can you describe your brother Michael? I asked, my voice barely steady. He's about 6'2", dark hair with some gray, works in tech, lives in Portland, Jessica replied. Is this some kind of joke? Portland. Not Seattle. But everything else matched perfectly. What's your brother's full name? I whispered. Michael James Robertson. Who is this really? Michael James Robertson. The same name on our marriage certificate, our mortgage, our joint bank accounts. This is his wife, I said again, tears starting to flow. We live in Seattle. We've been married since June 2019. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. When Jessica spoke again, her voice was shaky. Can you hold on a minute? I need to get my laptop. I waited, my hands trembling as I tried to process what was happening. When Jessica came back on the line, her tone had changed completely. I'm looking at my brother's Facebook page right now, she said slowly. His relationship status says, in a relationship with Claire Martinez. There are photos of them together at family events, holiday gatherings, birthdays. The most recent one was posted last week. I felt like I was drowning. Can you send me some of these photos? Of course. What's your email? I gave her my email address and waited while she sent the photos. When they arrived in my inbox, I opened them with shaking hands. There was Michael, my husband, with his arm around a petite brunette woman at what appeared to be a Christmas dinner. Both of them were smiling broadly, looking comfortable and happy. The photo was tagged at his parents' house in Connecticut and dated just 4 months earlier. There were more photos. Michael and Claire at a beach, at what appeared to be a wedding, hiking together, cooking together. In every photo, they looked like a couple deeply in love and completely comfortable with each other. How long has he been with Claire? I asked Jessica, my voice barely audible. About 3.5 years, she replied. She's wonderful. We all love her. Mom and Dad think they're going to get engaged soon. 3.5 years, which meant he had started dating her around the same time he met me. Jessica, I need to meet with you, I said. I need to understand what's happening here. Yes, she agreed immediately. This is insane. Can you meet me tomorrow? I can drive up from Portland. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in Seattle the next day. After hanging up with Jessica, I sat in my kitchen for over an hour, staring at the photos on my laptop and trying to make sense of what I had discovered. My husband, the man who had vowed to never hide anything from me, was living a complete double life. He had another girlfriend, another family who knew about her, but not about me, and had been maintaining this deception for our entire relationship. I thought about all the business trips to Portland, all the work calls he had to take privately, all the weekends he said he needed to handle client emergencies. How many of those had been visits to see Claire and his family? The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that I could barely process it. This wasn't a simple affair. It was systematic deception on a scale I had never imagined possible. When Michael returned from the gym, I was still sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open to Claire's photos. He walked in whistling, sweaty and cheerful from his workout. "How was your morning, babe?" he asked, kissing the top of my head as he passed behind my chair. I closed the laptop quickly, not ready to confront him until I had more information. "Fine," I said, amazed at how normal my voice sounded. "Just catching up on some work." The rest of the day was surreal. Michael behaved completely normally affectionate, talkative about his plans for the week, excited about a new client project. I watched him carefully, looking for signs of guilt or anxiety, but saw nothing unusual. How was he able to compartmentalize so completely? How did he keep track of all the lies? And how had I been so completely fooled for 3 years? That night, as Michael slept peacefully beside me, I lay awake replaying every moment of our relationship, looking for clues I had missed. The private phone calls, the reluctance to introduce me to his family, the business trips that sometimes seemed to involve more personal time than professional obligations. But even knowing what I now knew, most of his behavior had seemed reasonable at the time. He had been loving, attentive, and consistent in his treatment of me. If he was living a double life, he was remarkably skilled at it. The next day, meeting Jessica was one of the most difficult conversations of my life. She arrived at the coffee shop with a thick folder of photos and documents, looking as shocked as I felt. "I couldn't sleep last night," she said as we sat down. "I kept thinking about all the times Michael talked about Claire, all the family events they've attended together. How is this possible?" We spent 3 hours comparing notes, trying to piece together the scope of Michael's deception. Jessica showed me photos from family holidays, birthdays, and celebrations where Michael appeared with Claire. In the pictures, he looked relaxed and happy, completely at ease with his family and with her. "She's lovely," Jessica said, showing me a photo of Claire helping their mother in the kitchen. "She and Mom bake together. She remembers everyone's birthdays. She fits right into our family. We all assumed they would get married eventually." The contrast was jarring. While I had been kept completely separate from his family, Claire was apparently fully integrated into their lives. She knew his parents, attended family gatherings, and was considered part of their inner circle. "Has he ever mentioned me?" I asked Jessica. "Never," she replied. "Not once in 3.5 years. We had no idea you existed." We compared timelines and realized that Michael had been maintaining this double life with incredible precision. His business trips to Portland corresponded with weekends and holidays, when Claire would have expected to see him. His unavailability during certain weekends in Seattle matched family events in Connecticut that he attended with Claire. "He told us he was living in Portland," Jessica explained. "We thought his business required him to travel frequently, which is why we didn't see him every weekend. But we never questioned it because he seemed happy and successful." The level of planning required for such deception was staggering. Michael had created separate lives in 2 different cities, maintaining relationships, work obligations, and social connections in both places, while ensuring that the two worlds never intersected. "What are we going to do?" Jessica asked as our meeting drew to a close. "I'm going to confront him," I said. "But first, I want to meet Claire. She deserves to know the truth." Jessica agreed to arrange a meeting with Claire, and we exchanged contact information. As I drove home, I felt both devastated and strangely relieved. The nagging doubts I had been experiencing for months finally made sense. My instincts had been correct. Something fundamental had been wrong with my marriage. The question now was how to proceed. Should I confront Michael immediately, or should I gather more evidence first? Should I contact a divorce lawyer before saying anything? And how was I going to find the strength to face the collapse of everything I thought I knew about my life? That evening, I called in sick to work and spent the day researching divorce law and trying to process the emotional impact of what I had learned. Michael came home from work as usual, cheerful and affectionate, asking about my day and sharing details about his own. "You seem quiet tonight," he observed as we ate dinner. "Everything okay? Just tired?" I lied. marveling at how easily deception came when necessary. I might be coming down with something. He was immediately solicitous, offering to make tea and suggesting I go to bed early. His apparent concern for my well-being felt like another layer of betrayal. How could he be so caring in some ways, while lying about the most fundamental aspects of our relationship? The next day, Jessica called to tell me that she had spoken with Claire, and that Claire was willing to meet with me. "She's devastated," Jessica reported. She had no idea Michael was married. She thought she was in an exclusive relationship, and that marriage was the next logical step. She's been waiting for a proposal. We arranged to meet at a neutral location, a quiet restaurant halfway between Seattle and Portland. The drive gave me time to think about what I wanted to say to this woman who, like me, had been deceived by the man we both loved. Claire was waiting when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with red, rimmed eyes and a tissue in her hand. She was smaller than I had expected from the photos, with shoulder-length brown hair and kind eyes that looked as shocked and hurt as I felt. "Sarah?" she asked as I approached the table. "Yes. Thank you for meeting me. I know this is incredibly difficult." We sat in awkward silence for a moment before Claire spoke. "I keep thinking there must be some mistake," she said. "That maybe you're married to a different Michael Robertson, or that this is all some horrible misunderstanding." I pulled out my phone and showed her photos from our wedding, our honeymoon, and recent pictures of us together. Her face crumpled as the reality of the situation sank in. "How is this possible?" she whispered. "We've been together for 3.5 years. I spend every weekend at his apartment. I have a key. We've talked about getting married and having children." "So have we," I said gently. "We've been married for almost 3 years, and we own a house together." For the next 2 hours, we compared our relationships with Michael, trying to understand how he had managed such an elaborate deception. The parallels were striking and heartbreaking. Michael had told Claire that his work required him to travel frequently to Seattle and other Pacific Northwest cities for client meetings. His unavailability during weekdays was explained as business obligations in other markets. He would come home on Friday evenings and stay through Sunday night, Claire explained. He said the travel was exhausting, so he needed those weekends to recharge with me. Those were the exact weekends when Michael told me he had to work or handle client emergencies in other cities. Claire showed me photos from their relationship, romantic dinners, weekend trips, family gatherings. In every image, Michael looked genuinely happy and engaged, just as he did in photos with me. "Did he ever mention being married before?" I asked. "He said he had been in a long-term relationship that ended badly," Claire replied. "He told me he had learned from his mistakes and was ready for a real commitment. That's why I was so patient about marriage. I thought he was being careful because he had been hurt before." The conversation was painful but necessary. Claire was clearly a wonderful person, intelligent, kind, and completely innocent in this situation. Like me, she had trusted someone she loved and had been systematically deceived for years. "What do we do now?" she asked as we prepared to leave. "I'm still planning his surprise party," I said, an idea forming in my mind. "And I think both of us should be there." Claire looked confused. "A surprise party?" "The biggest surprise of his life," I said grimly. It's time all of Michael's worlds collided. Over the following week, I continued planning the party, while wrestling with the emotional impact of what I had learned. I called Michael's colleagues, friends, and gym buddies to confirm attendance, all while maintaining the pretense of normal married life with him. The cognitive dissonance was overwhelming. Michael continued to be loving and attentive, discussing plans for the following week and asking about my work projects. He seemed completely unaware that his double life had been discovered. I found myself studying him constantly, looking for signs of guilt or anxiety, but his behavior remained consistent. He was either a sociopath or the most accomplished liar I had ever encountered. Jessica stayed in close contact throughout the week, providing emotional support and helping coordinate Claire's attendance at the party. "She's handling this better than I would," Jessica told me during one of our phone calls. "She's determined to face him and get answers, just like you are." On the morning of the party, I woke up early to make final preparations. The catering would arrive at 5 p.m. Guests were expected at 7:30, and I had told Michael we were going out for a quiet dinner to celebrate his birthday. He seemed genuinely excited about our evening together, bringing me flowers and telling me how much he appreciated everything I did for him. "You make every day feel special," he said, kissing me goodbye as he left for his morning run. "I'm the luckiest man alive to have you as my wife." The irony was devastating. Here was a man telling me I made him feel special, while maintaining an entire separate relationship with another woman, who also believed she made him feel special. By 7 p.m., 30 people were gathered in our living room, including several faces Michael had never seen before. His Seattle colleagues and friends mingled with Jessica and Claire, creating an atmosphere of barely contained tension. Claire looked composed but pale, dressed in a simple black dress, and staying close to Jessica for support. I had to admire her courage in coming to confront the man who had deceived her so completely. At exactly 7:30, I heard Michael's car in the driveway. My heart was pounding as I positioned myself near the front door, with all the guests hidden in the living room and dining room.
Surprise!
The chorus of voices filled our entryway as Michael stepped inside, his face lighting up with genuine delight for exactly 3 seconds. Then he saw Jessica standing next to Claire, and the color drained from his face so completely, I thought he might collapse. His eyes darted frantically between me, Claire, and the room full of people who were beginning to sense that something was terribly wrong. "Michael." Claire stepped forward, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "What's going on? Who are all these people?" That's when my colleague Janet, who had helped coordinate guest lists, made the observation that would change everything. "Sarah, we didn't know Michael was married. He told us he was single." The silence that followed was deafening. 30 people stood frozen, while 2 women who loved the same man faced the scope of his betrayal. Michael's mouth opened and closed soundlessly as he looked back and forth between Claire and me. His usually confident demeanor had completely crumbled, replaced by the desperate expression of a man whose carefully constructed lies were collapsing around him. "You told them you were single?" I asked, my voice cutting through the tension. "I can explain," Michael started weakly. "You told me you traveled to Seattle for work," Claire said, her voice growing stronger. "You told me you wanted to marry me." "I do," Michael said desperately. "I mean, I care about both of you." The audacity of his response sent a wave of shocked murmurs through the room. Even his closest friends looked horrified by what they were witnessing. "How long?" I demanded. "How long have you been living this double life?" When Michael didn't answer, Jessica spoke up from across the room. "Has been bringing Claire to family events for 3.5 years. My parents think she's his girlfriend and that they're planning to get engaged." More gasps from the Seattle crowd. Michael's boss, who had always praised his integrity and reliability, looked like he wanted to disappear. His gym buddies, who had heard complaints about his busy schedule and difficulty maintaining relationships were staring at him with disgust. 3.5 years. I repeated, letting the timeline sink in for everyone in the room. You started dating her right around the time we met. Michael's attempt to respond was pathetic. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. I never meant to hurt anyone. And if you're watching this, and something about your own relationship feels off, trust your instincts. Ask the hard questions. Insist on transparency. Don't make excuses for behavior that doesn't make sense, no matter how much you love someone. The surprise party that was supposed to celebrate my husband's 40th birthday instead revealed the truth about who he really was. Sometimes the most painful discoveries are also the most liberating. Sometimes the end of one story is the beginning of a much better one. Have you ever discovered that someone close to you was living a double life? How did you find the strength to rebuild afterward? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's struggling with similar betrayal. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to Last Revenge. Remember, the truth always finds a way to surface. And sometimes the biggest surprise is discovering your own capacity for resilience and healing. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, you deserve relationships built on honesty, respect, and genuine love. Never settle for less.